This is a training for the ES Runner system. This is Friday, June the 29th, and we're going to go through a training with members, subscribers of the service in the room here, and to go through primary trade entries, cautionary trade entries, and scalps. We're going to start with the pre-market on June the 29th, and we're going to go through from pre-market. We're going to use 3 a.m. as a starting point. We're going to go through 9:30 when the regular trading hours open as the end point for pre-market training. We're going to go forward here. We're going to start at 3 o'clock in the morning. That's because the cash markets in Europe open. That's when the most volume comes in the market for the pre-market moves on the ES Mini. Going forward from 3 a.m. and we'll use this line at 3 a.m. to start things. The first 15 minutes of the markets open in the European session, my advice is to out of any trades for the first 15 minutes. At least the first 10 minutes. When the market opens in Europe, there will be some volatility, as you'll find in the U.S. markets open. Not as volatile, but volatile enough that it's a little dangerous. So there was no trade that happened from that time going forward. The next trade here is a short trade. It prints a C next to the R. The R means this is a valid rookie trader entry. Now, rookie trader means simply that there are more conservative rules that are overlaid on top of the system itself. It makes the trade simpler, safer for those with smaller to medium-sized accounts, or for those that want to trade a large account in a more conservative manner. The system itself produces many entries that the rookie trade system will not endorse, and that again is for the reasons I just outlined. So here you have your first short. An R is printed. You know you can take that trade as a rookie trader. And again, guys, rookie trader, I've said many times, rookie doesn't mean that you're brand new to trading. It really should be called more of like the conservative system more than rookie. It just means safer, okay? The entry here was 38. That's called your trigger price. Your first price generated by the system is always the trigger price. It's the best price of entry. A chase price gets produced when the trigger price is not penetrated by the market. The price here to enter was 13.38. The price here on this candle went as high as 13.38, 13.39. So therefore a limit was in fact executed on this candle. If the prices touch this entry price and don't penetrate it, many of you will get fills. A matter of fact, several of you got fills today on a trade that did that. But the system doesn't generate its profit and loss, which you see up here. This is profit in green and losses in red. The maximum profit, the maximum loss for the trade from entry. It won't generate these numbers until an entry price gets penetrated and therefore guarantees a fill for everybody. In this case, the first trigger got penetrated. There was no chase created. It prints a C next to it. It's called a cautionary trade. That means that the previous move before this short, the long before this, made over 5 points of distance. It went as much as 5 points or more in distance. As we scroll back and take a look here, the previous move from last night went as high as 23 points. It went as much as 23 points. So when you look at this trade this morning, you're going to have at 4:45 a short that, of course, again is based on the cautionary is based on the previous move being over 5 points. Now, it's very important that everybody understands when they need to trade and when they shouldn't trade. News events create volatility in the market, and there are rules related to news events. So, taking a look this morning, at 5:30, Bank of England Governor King speaks. While he speaks, you should not trade. Before he speaks, you should take your trade out with a profit or a loss 1 candle before he begins to speak. And how long he speaks varies. Typically 45 minutes to an hour and a half. That's pretty common for Governor King speaking. You got to look at news events, keep your tabs on when he's speaking, okay? That happens some mornings, and it makes trading safer if you abide by those rules. So if you took a short here at 450, you had to exit this trade based on one of two things. There's really only 2 exit rules. Exit rule number 1, if the smart line, which is the white gray line, if the smart line goes flat from entry 5 periods an opposite direction triangle will appear, which is this right here. Why is it opposite direction? Because you're in a short and a green triangle came in. That's a cautionary triangle. That's a triangle in the opposite direction of your trade. And when that happens, it happens after the smart line goes flat 5 periods. And if that occurs during the entry period, you get out of the trade. You get out of the trade. Now the difference between this trade, the first 5 periods, and this trade in the first 5 periods, in these first 5 periods of the stop loss line, you have a V formation, which is an outstanding sign that the trade will be profitable. That is why we have a rule that when this occurs here, you simply exit. There's really, again guys, very simple, 2 rules to exit. Exit based on a formation of the white line being flat with an opposite direction triangle coming in. As you can see here, it came in, and then the next candle over, a corresponding triangle came in, which means the market went flat for 5 periods, and all of a sudden, sellers came in. Sellers came at 5:20 in the morning to form a scalp. But you got a news event at 5:30, you don't take a 5:20 scalp. You don't have the time necessary to make profit before you'd have to exit 1 candle before the news event. So this is not a valid trade to take, and the rules explain to you that you need to have at least 30 minutes of time to make profit in the pre-market and at least 15 minutes of time in the regular trading hours to enter a trade to make profit before you have to exit it based on a critical news event or a critical time of the day. Open of a market, close of a market, so forth. Okay, so this trade, you got into it here at 13.38 and you got out when the cautionary triangle came in. You do it immediately. This triangle will appear at the start, at the open, the first tick of every bar. When this triangle comes in, that is, it will occur at the tick, the first tick of that bar. You do it immediately. Now, had you waited waited a few seconds, obviously you can see the market dropped a little bit, and maybe you got out of break even. But this trade today is counted as a 2-tick loss today, because upon entry to exit, the open price we use for exit, because to keep things consistent, open price is used because it can always be a tick better or a tick worse. But the whole point is you have to do this quickly. You have to watch the smart line. You have these dots down here which show you the dots count the number of periods are flat. Now here the dots, as you can see guys, the dots show up inside of the short indicator box. The dots start to show themselves. 1 dot, 2 dot, 3 dot. At 4 dots, guys, at 4 dots, you prepare yourself. That likely a 5th dot's going to come in, and if so, boom, you immediately close your position and you take a 2-tick loss. Maybe you took a 1-tick loss, whatever. I count this as a 2-tick loss. Even though the market dropped and therefore reduced your loss on a short, I count it as a 2-tick loss. Okay? Now, when this happens here, if you have compensating factors on the SSI, you could stay in this trade. What's a compensating factor? It means that during these 5 periods, you have a down arrow or 2. If there are 2 down arrows in these 5 periods, which down here there was not, there was an up arrow, and the SSI was turned up, you definitely leave this trade. But instead, if this is flat and you have a down arrow or 2 down arrows, stay in the trade. And that's a new advanced way of doing these setups using the SSI, but it is extremely effective. Has a high success rate when you use the SSI to further corroborate or deny the smart line. Remember, guys, the smart line is a longer term filter. It's taken into account many more analyzing, a far greater amount of analyzing of tick data, inflow, order data, bid and ask volume, and so forth. It's analyzing on a much bigger picture. The SSI gives you more of a tick by tick blow analysis. So if you have some selling coming in here, it's not great enough selling to turn down the stop loss line, but it's selling that's enough to merit staying in the trade. Here, you obviously had very strong buying that came in to turn the stop loss line up the first couple of periods, and you had scalp numbers come in. So that's a great trade. This trade from entry at 42 was the chase because 41 did get penetrated, 42 got printed. A 42 print here went against it by 2 1/4, so it got close to being stopped out. The stop loss for the pre-market is 2.5 points. Okay, so it got close, but it didn't get knocked out. That's the point. It didn't get stopped out, and this thing made from your 42 entry, it went up to 43 1/4, fell down, and then kept going off. Now, some might say, well, Eric, why don't you take the trade out on the first arrow here opposite direction triangle. You had one here like you did here. Yeah, you did, but the difference is this is the first 5 periods. This is the first 5 periods. This is not. This is the first 2 periods showed you a strong V. Therefore, stay in this trade. If you have a shape, an angle on the stop loss line in the first 5 periods, stay in the trade. If it is flat, don't. If the flat happens after the first 2 periods, like it did here, you may want to take some of your position off a little bit to be safe. But it's not a reason to exit the trade. It's the first 5 periods where things are critical. After that, it's still important to recognize these things, but it's not a reason to exit a trade. Okay? I mean, we can spend 10 years analyzing these systems and these algorithms and come up with 50 variances for exits. We're keeping it simple. This works very well, the rules that I've just outlined for you. So you're in this trade, you make your first ticks of profit from the entry price of 42. The first 6 ticks would be 43.5, which was done right about here. Maybe very close to here. That was 43.25, but done right here. Okay. And going forward, we're going to use 10 minutes of stop loss line being flat to create a sprint for the pre-market. Right now it's 15 bars. It's going to be 10 bars for the 5-minute system, and it's currently 15 bars for the 2-minute system. So this was really a sprint right here, guys. This was a sprint. For those that traded this morning that know the sprint rules, they know it's 10 bars. 10 bars or more of the stop loss line being flat, smart line being flat. When the first turn up occurs and the first corresponding triangle comes in, that's called a sprint trade. It doesn't print as a sprint right now because right now my developer just sent me this morning a way for me to manually put in the number of bars for the different systems, for the 5-minute and for the 2-minute. Okay, so the traders that know the rules, they took this trade this morning and they made 8 ticks of profit. So let me outline for you guys the trades this morning here. This was an entry at 38 with an exit. Oh, that magnet, the E-signal magnet, I can't stand that thing. Okay, 38 entry with a 38.5 exit. So this is a 2-tick. I get the feeling this train is going to be more than 10 minutes. So for those watching the video, be prepared. It's probably another 10 minutes. We're going to make this a cautionary trade pre-market. And this one actually loses 2 ticks. So, by the way, some of you won't even take cautionary trades. They are lower. They still have good success, but they are lower success rates. Alright, so let's now go over here to this one. 42 is your entry. And then you go up to 6 ticks of profit, which was right here. That's your first contract taken out at 6 ticks. You bring your second contract to a break-even status. We're going to go ahead and make this the first contract. Primary entry, first contract. Here we go. And that means that once you've banked profit on part of your position and you have nothing to lose, and you've got a runner brought to break-even status, that means you can take the next valid scalp or sprint. Again, this right here is the valid sprint. First turn up of the smart line with a corresponding triangle after 10 periods pre-market is a sprint, and it'll print as a yes. Matter of fact, if I take his email, for the fun of it, guys, I'm going to do this for you. I'm going to show you how this works. So hold on. Is it on my desktop? Where did it go? I'm not going to get in the middle of training here. I wanted to show you quickly how that would work, but it'll work on Monday. On Monday, he's giving me the ability to go in there and show what the number of bars are for pre-market. Because right now it was fixed at 15 bars. It was fixed at 15, which worked fine for the regular trading hours, but for the pre-market, it was making sprints come in at 15 bars. But instead, pre-market, 10 bars times 5 minutes is 15 minutes, a flat line. That's a long time, and that's sufficient enough to take a sprint. Regular trading hours, it's 15 bars. As you can see right there, see that sprint, that S? It's at 15 bars or more. Regular trading hours using the 2-minute system, 15 bars of 2 minutes each is 30 minutes. That's sufficient time for a sprint. So again, traders that knew this morning, knew the rules, they took this trade, they got into it. That trade also made, that trade on a sprint, you make 2 ticks more than a scalp. So pre-market, the scalps make 6 ticks and have a 6-tick stop loss. The sprints, the sprints have 2 more ticks of profit. You're taking a little bit more risk when you get into a sprint because the scalp number hasn't appeared yet. So you are taking a little more risk, so therefore you make a little more profit. Same thing for the sprints, guys. You have to act fast. You have to act fast, okay? When that arrow comes in, that complementary corresponding triangle comes in, it's in the direction of your move. You're in a long move, so you get a green triangle is a good sign. That is a sprint trade, and when the purple S appears, you get into it fast, and you make 8 ticks of profit, which from here to up here was 8 ticks. See, we don't push it more than 8 ticks pre-market because getting bursts like this, you can't expect bursts to really make on average 4 or 5 points, 3 points even. 2 is very safe. Alright, so that's a sprint trade. Change the color here, make it purple. And then make this a sprint trade pre-market. Sprint, there we go, 8 ticks. Alright, now let's walk through this. You're in a sprint trade right here. A scalp number comes up, first one in the series. Do you take the scalp number? You don't. Why don't you? Because you didn't bank the profit on the sprint yet. Until you make the profit on this earlier sprint, you don't over leverage yourself and take another scalp. Okay, so that scalp does not get counted today as an entry because you hadn't made your 8 ticks of profit yet. This candle was where you made your 8 ticks. It's the same candle the scalp came in. So that's not a scalp anybody should take when they're in the sprint. Now, if you didn't get in the sprint and you took the scalp, you're chasing a move a little bit. You're chasing a move. That's why you need to be in the sprint, not in the later series scalp. This 5 is after the 4, which is called intra-series. The rule for an intra-series scalp is not met. For those of you, I'll walk through it very quickly. It's very simple. You need to have 3 dots. For the 5, what happens with intra-series scalp is you take the last scalp number and then you've got to count that there's been 3 dots after the S to validate a new scalp to come in. That would meet one of the rules. Or the second rule is there's a 2-point pullback in price from the 4, 1 bar over, the highest price from 1 bar over from the 4 going forward. There's been a 2-point pullback, and then when a new scalp number comes in, it's a valid intra-series scalp. This is a little more complicated trading for the intra-series scalps. They are very successful if you can apply 1 or 2 rules. The first rule is very simple. It's one or the other. It's either the 3 dots after the S is the first rule. That's simple to see because you count the dots. The second rule of the pullback is the better of the 2 rules. It's a little more sophisticated. It means you've got to take a rectangle, make it 2 points in height, okay, which is right here. Actually, guys, excuse me, this sprint made money faster than I thought. The market moved so fast this morning. The sprint made money on 2 points right there. That was 2 points of entry. Exit was right here. So when this scalp came in right here, okay, this scalp is because the sprint had started the move. The sprint started the move right here. This scalp now would be the second number in a series. It is more dangerous because you're chasing the top of a move. So, I mean, this sprint, this scalp could have been taken from traders in the room. Probably a lot of traders took this scalp because it was the first scalp number in a series. It is a little bit more dangerous because the sprint really kind of starts the series. A series is the white period of the stop loss line. That's called a series. And the sprint would be the first trade in there. The 4, it's a little bit more dangerous. But if you took profit on this, you could have taken a sprint here. And had you done that, actually, the scalp, it made money. The scalp is a 6-tick take profit and a 6-tick loss. Now, sorry guys, doing my video and doing this all at the same time. I'm getting distracted here. Take this, make this a white arrow for the scalp. Put it up here at the open price. Let's see, did it make 6 ticks? Awfully close. I can't see with my go to training thing in the way here. Pull this down out of the way. Okay, so from entry here, open price is what we used. You might have got a tick or two better note than the open, but what I use again is the open price. So the open price was 1347 and a quarter. The high was 1349. So guess what? This made 6 ticks. So there was a lot of money made this morning in pre-market, guys. Now it made it by a tick, but it is what it is, guys. By a tick is a profit. Okay. So now that we have that trade, let's get this out of the way. Let's go ahead and duplicate this. Let's make this the 6 tick scalp profit. Pre-market 6 ticks. Now guys, remember, what do you have in the market still right now? You have a runner that's still in the market. You have a runner from the first 2 contracts. One made the 6 ticks, but then you have a second contract brought to break even as a runner, right? Well, guess what? You close your runner out before the market opens at 9:25. That's one of the rules for exiting a position. So your runner this morning was closed out right here at 9:25 on the open price of 9:25. So that means your runner from the open price of 42 and the open price of this candle at 9:25, which was 46 and a quarter, that's 4.5 points of runner was made this morning on the runner. So now let's make this the pre-market runner. 4 times, or 4 1/4 times 4 ticks each would be 17 ticks of profit on the runner. The runner just made 17 ticks. That's your pre-market, guys. Now we go to, of course, the 2-minute system at 9:30, which is right here. Okay, but that's the trades so far this morning. The profit this morning has been -2 ticks on one contract, 6 ticks on one, 8 ticks on another contract, 6 ticks on another contract, and then 17 ticks on the last contract of the first. Remember, 2 contracts on a primary entry, 1 contract and a cautionary. Cautionary is always half as much. Cautionary primary entry is half the position size of a regular primary entry. Okay, a rookie primary entry. So it's half here and it's twice here, or not. It's half here and it's normal here. So if you normally take 2 contracts on a primary entry that prints the R, you take 1 contract when it prints a C next to the R. Alright, and we'll get into what happens on a cautionary trade when it prints a chase number, a chase price. There's one rule for a cautionary trade when it prints a chase price, and it simply has to do with looking at the current move from the swing high. If it's moved 5 points or more from the swing high to the current price, when the chase gets printed, you take a 2-point pullback on your entry. It's one simple rule. It makes the cautionary trade more safe when a chase price is printed, because theoretically, guys, you think about it, I don't want to chase a cautionary trade. It's more risk on a cautionary trade. I don't want to chase it. I want to take a pullback if the move from the swing high to down here has been 5 points or more. In this case, it has been 42.5 down to 36, call it 37. That's 5.5 points. So if a chase price was printed in this case, if a chase price got printed, I would take the swing high to right here and take a 2-point pullback, which would have been right in there. Only when the chase is printed, not when the trigger is printed. The trigger is a good entry price. Take it. But when a chase gets printed, that's a bad entry price. That's more of a chase in the market. Take the pullback instead. Only on a cautionary trade, not on the non-cautionary trade. Okay? Let me get this out of the way here. Alright, so let's calculate the profit this morning. -2 plus 6 means +4, plus 8 is 12, plus 6 is 18, plus 17 is 35 ticks made this morning. 35 ticks at 4 ticks per point puts you up at approximately 9, almost, 9 points approximately. Good morning. 9 points of profit pre-market. Okay, that concludes the training. I hope this makes sense to everybody watching the video. For those that doesn't, just come into the room, take a couple days in the trial. The system will make a lot of sense. It's very straightforward. As for things related to scalps, this is one example of a scalp here, and one example of a sprint right here, which again will print the S going forward tomorrow, as it did right there. It'll print it here because we'll be using 10 bars. for the 5-minute system. The traders in the room already know these things because of the rules. And the SSI is used simply to help qualify better scalps and help to qualify initial entries in the first 5 periods. We use the SSI for those purposes. That is the conclusion of this training. I look forward to seeing anybody in the room that's watching the video and to learn more about the system tomorrow or any other day in the future. Systems have, again, they use volume, a bid and ask, order flow, which is what moves markets and what causes prices to change. Use and lagging indicators does not make any retail trader any money. Banks and hedge funds and professional trading firms use order flow and volume, a bid and ask. These are what these algorithms are built around. That is why several professional trading firms currently use them. Thank you very much. Look forward to seeing you in the room.